Welcome everybody, this is Brothermutant here. Today we're going to talk about a very wonderful pack called Reeron Spell Fixes, and this actually is going to be broken into several videos because of the amount of content that Reeron has done. Now, a little caveat here, I don't know that all these things have been tested. I'm going by his little fact sheet, and I say his, and then I assume that Reeron's a guy. If you are Reeron, a woman, in fact, I do apologize, not for being a woman, obviously for getting it wrong, but I'm just going to go with he just to make things simpler on myself so I don't keep stumbling here. Reeron has done a phenomenal job fixing a variety of spells, putting them in more in line with pen and paper, making them scale appropriately in ways that makes them now suddenly useful. Think of your summon spells being a complete and utter piece of piss for anything other than triggering a trap or being the instant death fodder for the very first volley. Now you'll see that those pets are a lot more useful, and you'll see why in a bit. I'm going to break this video into parts that are going to cover differences and upgrades and changes, as well as new spells for wizards / sorcerers. Of course, we'll have ones that are videos for clerics and one for not paladins, excuse me. One video or two videos, depending on the content, for druids as well. Now, that will not cover everything. He's done a lot of fixes for warlocks, which I never play and I don't particularly like anyway. But by all means, check it out if you're a warlock fan. There's nothing wrong with them. I just don't particularly like the class. They have a lot of changes for them as well, and a lot of the changes you'll see will be things like spells that can crit now, or I guess for warlocks they'll be called incantations, I guess. Stuff that can do sneak attack damage, stuff that was doing crit or sneak attack damage that shouldn't have been, for example, AoE moves that shouldn't be sneak attacking, from what I understand. But you'll see all those fixes in their little fact pack that comes with the download. I'm printed that off, and as you can't see, because obviously I'm not showing you that part of the video, it's about a 24-page document, so it's very large, the amount of changes, and many of them are just minor things, switching the school that they belong to. For instance, it may not be a conjuration, it may be an enchantment. So again, he or she's fixed that, right? So you'll see those as we go through them. But let's get started, shall we? So the first one we have, and I have them in order here, and this is not even all of them. This is just the first, probably two videos that I'll put together here will be the content that you see here. The very first spell is Avasculate, and the reason I have two separate windows open is because this is the scrolls that I've purchased from this vendor, which you cannot see here. The scrolls have the original vanilla version description in them. Now, whether this happens in the actual game, I don't know, but it does happen in this particular mod. I'm using Sorceress Ashura's module to test her spells, because I can actually summon a critter and use it to attack to demonstrate some of the things that might need demonstrating. Avasculate has been upgraded in that there was a graphical issue where if you missed, and again you have to do a ranged touch attack, and then for those of you that don't know what that is basically your base attack bonus. You can see here any dexterity modifiers that you may have. It will not key off of wisdom if you have Zen Archery, so be warned. I did check that. That's why you'll see the weird stats that I have here. Zen Archery is one of the feats I picked, and it is completely useless for ranged touch attack, which is probably for the best, because it would allow it would allow clerics and druids way too much leverage for doing the ranged touch attacks. They could just whoop up on guys way too easy. So I guess I understand why they went with that direction of it, basically keying off of just dexterity. Anything, of course, that affects your attacks overall, an attack bonus for just anything, any kind of attack, will also be employed. Things like epic prowess, I think I have on this character as well. Yeah, a +1 from that. You can also get weapon focus for each of the touch attacks, respectively, melee or ranged. So that's good. And again, weapon finesse works. You'll also see that point blank shot works, and that's phenomenal. Now, I don't know that there was a penalty beforehand. I never even bothered to check. But I do know that if within 15 feet and you cast a ranged touch attack, you do get a +1 to your attack, and I can actually prove that to you guys. So a lot of these improvements are things like ranged touch attack is now calculated correctly. The right bonuses are going for it. And like point blank shot. Will it crit? Will it do sneak attack damage? And sneak attack damage is now overly powered, and I love it. This character happens to be a rogue wizard arcane trickster, with my sneak attack being retardedly high because I have a 5d6 from arcane trickster and a 2d6 from the rogue class. They're additive, so that's a 7d6 sneak attack for any move that can do a sneak attack. So if I'm invisible and they're distracted and I hit them with a ranged move like Acid Splash that does 1 to 3 points of damage, you also add another, was it 6d6 or 7d6 sneak attack to it as well. So, and it will be acid damage as well. So I can do like 30, 40 points of damage to a guy with a sneak attack move that's level 0, which I love. Probably cheating, probably OP, but I don't care. And it's only sneak attack, so you don't do it all the time, but it's certainly fun. Now, Avasculate, we were talking about, yeah, the very first one. If you look at the scroll, this gives the original vanilla version of what you guys will see. If you go now into, it's a level 7 spell, if you go into the actual ones that have been scribed into my book and look at it, they may change. You know, like the school, the distance, you know, whatever they've fixed. In this particular case, there has been no real change that you can see here because the changes were visual. If it misses, your ranged touch attack misses, apparently it's been randomly not showing the beam. So you basically just put your hand and it says miss. Well, of course it missed. There was nothing that shot out your hand, but that looks stupid. You should still shoot the beam, so they fixed that. They also made it where combat expertise will be taken into effect for many of your spells. So that's going to be important later. I did check this myself, and with combat expertise on, it was supposed to penalize my attack rolls, which would include your touch attacks, whether it's melee or ranged, shouldn't matter. It's a penalty to your attack roll. And improved combat expertise is even more of a penalty. It's a better armor class. I think it's +6 and then -6 as a result. It does not do that. Why, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're in this module and I haven't tested it in the real world, so to speak. But it does not seem to do that. Now, if that's working as intended, that's fantastic for a wizard or any spellcaster type that relies on touch attacks. Because if you get this combat expertise, free armor class, and no penalty to the spells that you're casting, that's phenomenal news. Now, other than that, Avasculate really hasn't seen a whole lot of other things to it. But one thing that they do mention is there's immune to death magic. Will protect you from this particular spell if they have immunity to death magic and you cast it on them. Now it will actually show up in the combat log down here that they are in fact immune to death magic, so you're not wasting your time instead of going, why didn't it work? Well, now you know why. Bull Strength didn't get an upgrade in any real sense. It's still the same spell. The difference is originally Bull Strength would not stack properly with other spells that it should. Now let me explain what I mean. Bull Strength and Mass Bull Strength will not stack. That's why you'll see Mass Bull Strength in Bear's Endurance and stuff like that listed here, so that I can explain that to you later. But by and large, it's because it's the same spell, so it shouldn't stack. You shouldn't be able to cast Bull Strength on yourself 5 times in a row and walk around like God, smacking stuff down with like a 40 strength. It's not fair, and I understand that. But Bull Strength will stack with things like Enlarged Person. Now this one only gives you a +2 strength bump, but still, it's there. If I were to cast this in Bull Strength with the original vanilla version of the game, I would only get the +4 from Bull Strength. Okay, so I go from 10 to 12 with this spell on me, cast Bull Strength right after, and then just jump to 14, and that's it. If I cast both of them now, then I'll actually become Strength of 16, and I can demonstrate that for you. So here we go. Enlarged Person. +2. Bull Strength now will stack properly to make me +16. Or a total of 16. So I have a +3 attribute bonus now, which is extremely nice. And this works for other spells that are similar. What I mean by that is Bull Strength works with this spell. Bull Strength would work just as well with, what's it called? Righteous Fury, Righteous Might, something like that the clerics get. That they get larger. And they get a very nice strength bump on that one. I think theirs is +4, +6, something retarded like that. So again, cooperative use of stuff like that. Extremely nice. Now, having said that, there are other spells that are extremely similar to Enlarged Person. Okay, obviously Enlarged Person makes you grow taller, you get a strength bump. Righteous Might, once you get taller, you get a strength bump. You can't combine those two to get even more taller and get more of a strength bump. Same with the Durger's ability, the natural race's ability to get enlarged self. Even though it's not a spell, it's a spell-like effect. And the same principles apply here. They don't stack, you don't get extras. You just get whichever the best is, if that makes sense. From there, we have things like Burst Glacial Wrath. Nothing particularly outstanding about this one, other than there was a couple mistakes that the spell was making. If they, for example, the targets, is a cold spell. If the targets were vulnerable to cold, not fire, this is what happens when you get hit. If they're vulnerable to cold, for whatever reason, it was just auto-killing the guys. Now, maybe it's supposed to be able to take them down to a certain point and encase them nice. I never really used the spell, but the point is still the same. They fixed some errors with the spell. Also, you see how they get a DR for being encased in ice, DR 10. That was actually lasting too long, so they fixed that glitch. And so there's issues about that, so they fixed that there. And this was also one that apparently was glitching in a way that it was actually affecting the caster. It's a cone spell, there's no way it should affect the caster, but it actually was in many cases. So they fixed that issue as well. More likely than not, the point of origin for where it kicked off, was it your chest or was it your hand? So if it's your chest, chances are it was still targeting you. So they probably had it spawn, just in front of the character like it should. They fixed that issue. Cacophonic Burst is a very nice spell, which I do love. I never actually noticed it before, but apparently, and maybe the devs have fixed this, and so Reeron's fix is not doing anything that wasn't already there. So again, grain of salt with a lot of this stuff. But Reeron claims that originally Cacophonic Burst, an AoE move that it would roll how much damage it would do, and it would do the same amount of damage to everybody. So if I rolled poorly, got a 15, multiple targets would all take 15. Okay, unless of course they had to save, cutting it in half. But if they all failed their reflex save, they all took 15 points of damage, and that's it. Well, it's supposed to roll for each individual character, and now it does so, and I do know that that is true. Now, again, whether it did in the vanilla version, still I don't know. I never bothered to pay attention to it, but it's part of Reeron's fixes. Displacement, a very nice spell, level 3 spell, and it's a buff, has finally been given the ability to be persisted, so it doesn't last very long. But if you invest 6 spell levels, so maybe a 9 level casting, and have the persistent metamagic feat, you can turn it into now a persisted version of displacement. That means 24-hour buff, for those of you that don't know. It's not permanent, like a lot of people think. It's just persisted, and that's what that means. So for any of those spells that you guys have that are 1 hour per caster level, don't waste your time persisting them. Like light, for instance, you would never persist that, because chances are you're producing 20 plus hours of light anyway. The small increase wouldn't be worth it, and certainly not wasting a slot at level 6 for something like a persisted light spell, right? Other things though you could see, like Enlarged Person, right? Doesn't last very long, 1 minute per caster level. So again, even at level 30, which is what I'm technically considered, it only lasts me a half an hour in game time. So you could see some people wanting certain buffs to be lasting a lot longer, right? From there, we had, let's see, that's displacement. Let's see, let me turn some pages here, guys. Like I said, there's 24 pages of this stuff. Energy Drain has now been given the ability to do sneak attack damage. It's a ranged touch attack, so it's not an auto hit. But again, you do have to do a ranged touch attack to hit the target. It doesn't have a saving throw, so you see here it says Fortitude negates it, and that's in the scroll version. So again, let me pop up my book, level 9 spells of Energy Drain. Negative levels are permanent, so there's a difference there. It says that there is no save since it's a ranged touch attack, but you still have it in the tooltip, so they must not have fixed it. That's a shame. That'd be interesting to actually check that out then, to see if it really does not allow a Fortitude save, because that's guaranteed. So as long as you hit the target, that's guaranteed negative levels for that character. And being that they are capable of sneak attack and crit damage, I don't understand how that actually works, because it's not damage per se, it's negative levels. Does that mean that 2 to 8, which is what we're talking about here, negative levels become even greater? Yeah, because if that's the case, critting on something like that would be phenomenal. You'd like nerf the hell out of the target, or if not, you'd kill them outright. Greater spell mantle, and all the spell mantles, matter of fact, are included in this upgrade. Just that greater showed up first, that's why I have it here. All of them now have the ability to absorb spell levels of things like instant damage AoE moves. So think of Vitriolic Sphere or Fireball or Sound Burst, AoE moves that would damage your character. If you had greater spell or any of the spell mantles on you, they will now absorb correctly the amount of levels of the spell and protecting you from it, which is extremely nice, because apparently it wasn't doing that much needed increase in survivability, if you will. Iron Body and Stone Body's on here as well. It's basically the same glitch, so I just will mention it to one time. Apparently one of the issues was, we have immunity to electricity. It's part of the spell. Half immunity for acid and fire, so take 50% of the damage, incoming damage, from those two types of attacks. Well, there's specific classes out there that already had immunity to electricity or fire. The two that I'm thinking of are Stormlord and Red Dragon Disciple. And apparently when the spell would shut off, it would actually strip off your immunity, whichever one we're talking about. Well, that's not cool, because that's the whole point of being a Red Dragon Disciple or Stormlord, was that immunity, so it should be there. Now they fixed it where it doesn't strip it off you. And the same, like I said, is applicable to Stone Body. Let's see, from there, now these ones are together for the same reason. For spell mantles, again, if you had a spell mantle on you, the whole purpose of it is, again, to suck up spell damage and make it basically immune to it at the cost of absorbing potential of whatever these mantles give you, right? Now these spells hit you multiple times, so Isaac's Lesser Missile Storm and Greater Missile Storm hit you with multiple missiles if you're the only target. Well, apparently the game was calculating each missile then as in this case, a level 6 spell. So if I hit you 10 times, I could technically strip 60 levels worth of spell mantle off of you, which is ridiculous. None of them protect you that much. So these were basically stripping off even the best spell mantles with just one casting. So they fixed that. So it doesn't matter how many missiles from that one casting of Greater Missile or Lesser Missile Storm hit you, it's only going to strip off the appropriate amount from one time from your spell mantle. So that's a very nice fix, because it's clearly glitched. Magic Circle apparently was only usable on the caster. Now they've made it where you can target someone, single target, so you can buff an ally, like a fighter in the front row that's surrounded by the cleric and the bard and whoever's up front with them, so that they can be protected, and then I can, of course, as a wizard or sorcerer, sit in the back, hang out with my buds, and sling spells like I should from the safety of my back row, right? So a much needed improvement. Of course, we just have these mass bull strength, bears and cats endurance, bears endurance and cat's grace, to point out that these ones do no longer stack, or should never have in the first place, stack with things like bull strength, cat's grace, the watered down version of it, right? So you don't get to do +4 and another +4 stacked on you, because they're two technically different spells. They do not stack anymore. Charm spells, and first off, Mass Charm Monster is a unique one in that you could not scribe it to a scroll. They fixed that, and it's a much needed fix for those that wanted to pass off that spell. Reeron's allows you to do that, so that's nice. But for any of the charm spells, there has been a difference now. So that's why you see Charm Person down here. But in a nutshell, not only do you roll to charm the target, if you actually roll significantly higher than the target, instead of just being charmed, you're actually considered dominating that target. The duration has changed as well to like an hour per caster level. A maximum of 41, I think, is what they added to this. So it's not permanent like it should be, but the game still has to become some kind of fun, right? So Polar Ray, of course, is a ranged touch attack. As far as changes to it, though, let's see here. Switching pages. Yeah, so this one keys off of things like point blank shot, anything that basically would be a ranged touch attack. So dexterity obviously impacts it. its range specialization can be used. It's a feat, which I do have, that gives you another +2 damage to range touch attacks, the initial hit. In this case, there's only one hit, so that's fine. When I say initial hit, think of things like Melf's Acid Arrow. It hits multiple times with acid, right, from just one casting of the spell. But only the first hit gets the chance to crit, gets the chance to do sneak attack damage, gets a chance to get the +2 from the range spell specialization, stuff like that. So point blank shot works, critical hits now, sneak attack damage all is applicable, and this thing already does hella damage anyway. So if you think about that, you know, wizards and sorcerers now with access to these types of spells that are already hidden, and then have, you know, like Arcane Trickster like I do, and have enough sneak attack built into them, can really start putting a whooping on a target from range, you know, while everyone else is doing their thing or their pets are out, which will be something else we talk about here in a moment. Awesome. Next one. Shocking Grass. It's a melee touch attack, right? Let's see. Melee spell specialization kicks in for this one as well if you have that feat. So again, another +2 damage added to the roll. How that's calculated, if it's literally just a +2 or +2 per dice, I don't know. I've never looked at it yet, and I never really see. It just says in your combat log, you know, melee spell specialization is, you know, active or something like that, so letting you know that it is working as intended. Other changes to it though is like because it's a melee move, and this is very important, weapon finesse takes a hold now. So if you are a typical wizard, I'd say your two biggest stats are going to be intelligence, obviously, and then next one probably be dexterity, so you have some good defenses, some inborn armor class. Remember, you don't get to wear armor. You have spells and, you know, robes and stuff that may be enchanted, but that's about all you're really getting. So a good dexterity goes a long way for, you know, jacking you up to a respectable level, at least early on in the game. So now they make it where weapon finesse works, and since it works for unarmed strike, I'm guessing the logic is, well, if you're literally punching people and you get to use your dexterity instead of your strength attribute bonus because dexterity is higher, then why shouldn't a melee touch attack work as well off of dexterity? So that's what they did, and I'm happy with that, and I think that's a good idea. So I do get a bump to my attack bonus because my dexterity is higher, and of course any spell that bumps your dexterity or decreases it will also impact then your attack bonus for your melee touch attacks. So that's a really nice addition, I think. And remember, when we're talking about touch attacks, either of them, we get to ignore a lot of the armor class of the target. Remember, we don't have to touch them on the skin. We don't have to worry about doing anything like that. It's literally, I can touch your shield, your armor, or your skin, and as a result, natural armor class doesn't get counted. Armor class doesn't get counted, and shield armor class doesn't get counted. That's a big decrease to their targets. So even though you have a low base attack bonus if you're a traditional wizard, that still doesn't matter because you're really ignoring a lot of the target. So bump that dexterity, you know, use something like True Strike, or you got half a dozen other spells that increase attack bonus, you know, haste for instance. Use those and you will have a big increase, you know, a chance to hit them with those specific attacks. Let's see, from there, this one of course now, just like any of these other attacks, you know, it takes into effect sneak attack damage, calculates crit properly, and of course for all of these, if a target is immune to critical, a chance for critical, think of undead, then they won't do it. So it respects that. The immunity to critical hits is respected by these spells now, which is fair. And I mean, really, you're already doing enough damage to those guys, so I'm assuming the same would apply to anyone that's immune to sneak attack. I don't know, I haven't checked it yet because the target in here is only a small bug. But in game, if you guys notice that, by all means, post, let me know. Let's see, from there, Stone Body we already talked about yet because it's basically the same glitch as Iron Body. Touch of Fatigue, of course, is a touch move, so ranged or a melee touch attack. The reason that this one is mentioned, though, is not because of that. It's actually mentioned because of how you actually remove the fatigue effect. Because it does last a decent amount of time. The fatigue effect can be cured, so to speak, with spells like Heal, Mass Heal, Lesser Restoration, Restoration, and Greater Restoration, just so you know. reasons now to actually keep those spells handy, on your cleric, on your paladin, or even your druid. I think it's some of those. So don't discount those spells anymore. You're gonna see debuffs last a lot longer with Reeron stuff. Vampiric Touch is a melee touch attack. Again, you have to touch your target. Respects things like sneak attack and crits, and since whatever damage you do, you actually get added to you as hit points, as a temporary bonus to your hit points. It even respects those crits and sneak attack damage. So if you really want to pump your HP through the roof, be a sneak attacking bastard with this spell on, you could really crit for like 40-50 and have like a massive bump to your hit points. It's kind of cool. Makes this spell a lot more useful, I'd say. So again, good changes. Also a couple little minor glitches for that one. It was incorrectly calculating maximum damage when you use the maximized metamagic feats, and now they fixed that as well. So from there we have, and I have these little, you'll notice that I have cure spells. Obviously these are not wizard spells. This is to let me know there's a break and to switch over to a new topic. So basically they've broken them into categories of spells fixed, spells fixed for pen and paper, to make them more in line with pen and paper, new spells and stuff like that. So that's the reason for the various breaks. Assay Resistance was a spell that was busted. For the longest time, if you cast it on the target, it was actually giving them more protection or some such, which is the opposite of what you wanted to do. You were supposed to give yourself a buff to spell resistant checks against the target. Now, it says it affects the caster. Now, I don't know if that's still, because that, again, I don't fight anyone in here that's a wizard. I don't know that means I target myself or if I target my target with the spell. Like, is it a self-buff, so to speak? I can't imagine you would target yourself, though. It makes no sense, because then that would mean I have this buff to my caster levels for, checking for spell resistance, but that would apply to anyone at that point, right? So you still have to pick a target, I would assume, but I haven't checked that. But again, is working now, so at the very least makes Assay Resistance much more useful for penetrating the defenses of others. So consider putting that in your guys' repertoire again. Again, we talked about Bear's Endurance, and again how they don't stack with Mass Bear's Endurance and blah blah blah. We now get Body of the Sun. Even though it says Druid, it's actually now a Wizard Sorcerer spell. Same general spell, nothing really different, but by and large it's still the same thing that you see now. And again, could be useful. I could see using it. Confusion had only one minor fix to it. The Meta Magic feat Extend, doubling the duration of the effect, wasn't working as intended, so they fixed it. So now you can extend the confusion for longer. I don't know that anyone even really uses this spell, but it's there if you want it. They have fixed that. From there, Enlarge Person. Again, we talked about it stacking with things like Bull Strength or Mass Bull Strength. Right? You obviously can't stack it with the Durger Racial Ability Enlarged Person, because it's the same spell, even if it's a spell-like effect. So we already talked about that, too. Let's see. Flame Strike. No, that's a cleric spell. Sorry. Magic Weapon is my next one then. Here we go. And this will be something that I'm going to have to test. I'll get back to you guys on this one. This one, they've upped it now with this, as well as Greater Magic Weapon. Originally was only enchanting a physical melee weapon in your hand. Now you can actually use it to increase the enchantment of a ranged weapon, like a sling, a bow, a crossbow. So that's helpful. And a better upgrade than that is they've added it for monks that are wearing gauntlets. And I would assume that this would apply to non-enchanted gauntlets as well, where it will make them enchanted, giving them an attack bonus and damage buff. That's fantastic, and that will work on anybody. So it doesn't have to be a monk. Obviously, I could be like I am a wizard, but I don't have gauntlets. Just a random pair of gloves to put on, right? If I did and I could use this spell, I would be curious to see if this increases my melee touch attack or my ranged touch attack. I would assume melee. And if that's the case, then guys, and again, I'll report back once I do officially test this, Greater Magic Weapon then would be extremely useful at the highest level, because it's a +5. So imagine that, a +5 to your attack bonus for melee touch attacks, and all you had to do was wear a silly pair of gloves. It could even be gloves that are like, greater ogre strength, or whatever, to give you another attack bonus bump by having higher strength. More damage. Nothing wrong with any of that. That could be something that would be extremely useful, I could see, as a wizard or a sorcerer, of course. So again, something that I will check to make sure, but certainly does work now for ranged weapons, for melee weapons, and now gauntlets for those monk types out there. Polymorph Self has a very nice switch. A couple switches here. One of the biggest is you don't lose your bonus spell slots if the result of an ability increasing item, because you're polymorphing into something else. The game was originally basically taking off all your gear. So a lot of people had stuff that, for me, okay, I'm a wizard, so plus intelligence could be something I'd be wearing. Change into a troll, for instance, for whatever reason, and bam, I lost a major dip in my intelligence as a result, and then I would lose some of those extra spell slots that I may have had. You change back to your wizardly form, and then suddenly you have big holes in spells that you've learnt for the day, which really sucked. So they've removed that, so that's a nice change. And more important than that, and let me show you here in the actual spell. This is a really nice switch. Upon changing into your first form, whichever one you're picking, and then these ones are still the same forms, you actually do fully heal. It doesn't restore anything else other than your hit points going to max, which is awesome. And that's what the spell was supposed to have done in the first damn place. So that's a really nice one. Notice that changing back does not heal yourself further, so you don't take a bunch of damage and then go, oh, well, screw that, I'm back to normal, and then have full health again. So apparently that doesn't work. But still, that first initial heal, that's a really nice reason for this spell. And the only thing that changes in your new form, of course, is your strength, your dexterity, and your constitution to match whichever form you pick. So that's nice. That leaves your 3 mental stats completely alone, which it should. And you gain extraordinary special attacks possessed by the form, like Constrict, Improve, Grab, Poison, for example. But you don't get any of these extraordinary special qualities of the form, which kind of sucks. Things like fast healing or regeneration would have been nice. That's the reason for turning into the damn troll in the first place. So apparently you don't regenerate in troll form, which is kind of a drag. But it's still better than nothing. So it's making the spell a little more viable. And again, rangers get it as well as wizards/sorcerers. So still a very fun spell to play with. From there, we have Scorching Ray, and as you guys know from plenty of my Let's Plays, because I tout how much fun this spell particularly is, Scorching Ray is a ranged touch attack, 3 up to 3 ranged touch attacks, matter of fact, because you get a ray at level 3, another one at level 7, and the final one at level 11. Does 46 damage, like you remember before, but again, must succeed on a ranged touch attack to hit the foe each ray. Now, you can pick one target to get hit with 3 rays, beam, 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 or split it as an AoE move where you hit up to 3 separate targets. If there's only 2 targets, and this is kind of a bummer, you only shoot 2 rays. But it's still pretty good damage, and your ranged touch attack is probably going to hit because, again, you're ignoring a lot of their armor, and you're keying off of things like your dexterity, which you can already have high and buff with your spells, right? So still a pretty good spell, and the only real reason that I pointed this out is it also has this is because of the ranged touch attack, again, criticals, sneak attack damage, and all that stuff is still applicable for this spell. So again, you could really hit them with a lot of fire damage now. So very nice upgrade. Sleep spell was having a minor glitch in that when you cast it as well as deep slumber and you were invisible, just the regular form of invisible, it's supposed to make invisible fall off you because it is technically an attack. Apparently it wasn't doing that in game, so you could be invisible, cast sleep spell all damn day long and sleep the damn party of bad guys and just traipse around pretty as you please and still be invisible. It's kind of game breaking. So they fix it where once you cast it, it breaks invisibility. Again, the normal invisibility, and that's important, and I'll explain why later. Vitriolic Sphere got an upgrade. Notice how it has a reflex special as well as spell resistance. Well, this is an acid spell, and like I've been telling you guys in the past, there shouldn't be spell resistance for acid spells. This is applicable for things like acid splash, acid fog, Melf's acid arrow. The reason for that is this. you're generating, like you're conjuring, it's a conjuration spell, you're conjuring acid, actual physical manifestation of acid. So there shouldn't be spell resistance. You basically get hit with a physical form, right? It's not magic at that point, it's a solid, liquid in this case, and does damage. And as a result, there should be no spell resistance. Now there are saves, of course, for lessening the damage, as you can see down here, but by and large, that's the big saving point of acid spells, was the fact that spell resistance is ignored. So they did that, and they did that correctly. Let's see, from there, now we have animate spells, as well as, where you at? Animate dead, and this falls in with create undead, create greater undead, and all the summon types of spells, which not only includes summon creatures, but those planar binding spells and stuff that basically is going to summon a pet. Okay, and this is a big change here, guys. You can have more than one out at a time now, and that's kind of game breaking. I'm going to explain why here in a second. But B, they've made it where it scales properly. So here's the original scroll of Animate Dead, level 4. So let's go look at it now. Here it gives more information on it. Okay, what level of caster level are you? This is what you're going to summon. So at the very earliest you can get Animate Dead, you can actually get it as a level 5 character. You summon a skeleton. And it's a pretty good skeleton, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's a piece of piss for the level. He's actually a lot better than you'd expect. But then once you start leveling up and you cast it again, you start making zombies. Then you get even farther, and like right now I'm well beyond level 10, so I'll summon a skeletal warrior if I summon a pet. Notice how you can have multiple pets out of any of these types, and they just list a variety of spells that they've done this to. They've also made them scale with you appropriately, so that they're equal to like half your caster level. Their attack bonuses go up, their armor class is higher, so they're a lot more survivable. Their HP, instead of being like 13 or 20 or something lame sauce like that, right now I summon these guys, they're like 210 or higher. So a much needed increase. And I'm not necessarily a fan of being able to summon multiples, but having said that, if I'm a wizard, and let's say for each level 1 through 9, I invest one spell slot to summon creature, right? Summon creature 1, 2, and all the way down to 9. And the poop hits the fan and I want to summon all 9 of them, I don't see a problem with that. Now, having said that, I would not want to be a sorcerer, for example, or a druid who can turn any spell into a summon critter spell, right? And summon 7 of the same damn wolves and just march through the game, especially with things like these where you Animate Dead, you have 1 hour per caster level. If you literally lock those in here at level, what is that, 4? Yeah, I can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those things if I wanted to. Have 5 pets of decent health, better health than I have, better armor than I have, better damage than I have, and they'll be there pretty much all damn day long. That's kind of game breaking. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I say I like it, but I don't like it. I'm glad that they increased the armor class and the attack bonus and the health, gave them some abilities that they didn't have in some cases. Like the skeletal warrior, I think, does some cold damage with his attack. He has like a enchanted sword, if you will, that does cold damage. And they've done this for some of the other ones as well, increase their protection or give them better attacks, stuff to bring them more in line with something you would expect to make the spells more viable. I'm happy with that. I'm not planning on exploiting it, but I can see how people could do this. And again, I mentioned this for all of them. That's why I just put a random assortment of them in here to show you that it's not just one. It literally is several. And here's an example of one right now. Summon creature 4, the dire boar, which isn't horrible. They changed the duration for the summon critter ones to 2 rounds per caster level, instead of that was 18 plus 1 per caster level, which is, I think, yeah, all these guys get that. So that was kind of stupid. So they made it literally be a lot more viable this way. As a level 30 caster, it's still only hanging around for 60 rounds. It's still a lot better than what it could have been, so I'm not complaining. But they still go by real fast. At the very least, with their protection now and their attack bonuses being through the roof, You don't have to worry about them sucking wind.
I hear crumbs.
And this will be one that I actually do demonstrate for you because I want you to see. Here's my guy. Nice armor class. Decent hit points. He's a level 15 beast, half my caster level because I'm considered level 30. Right? His base attack bonus is a piss all 11, but they gave him a bump, as you can see here, for both armor class and attack bonus. So that you see that he's swinging at a plus 35. He has 3 attacks, so that's nice. Doesn't do stellar damage, but his strength's pretty good. So again, they scale appropriately, I think. And just to show you that, again, I can have more than one out. Here is a create greater undead. Normally this would cause this guy to disappear. But now here's my Nightwalker. And I want to talk about game break. And look at this guy. 48 armor class. And that's without buffing this guy at all. And they made it where the armor class is like shield armor class on these guys. So, and I'm assuming this is more for druids than anyone else. You can cast, there's a word that I could say, natural armor class spells like spider skin, bark skin, stuff like that on these targets and give them a higher armor class as a result. Now, so it will work. So that's nice. His attack bonus is really high, has huge strength, he has some other stuff going for him. Now he has feats, I don't know if they actually work as far as things like dark vision, but his greater fortitude, you can actually believe that it's there. But his fortitude's already piss all. So, and you can buff these guys like with any other spell that you can buff a teammate with, so by all means do so if you really think that you want to increase them. But here I see now I have a ridiculously strong team of 3 people here from just 2 castings. Go a little crazy. There's one here called Shades, and it has one where if you cast it on the ground, it summons another elemental randomly generated, so 1 of the 4. And you can see he's here now. And he doesn't have 210, but he's at 199. He has a decent armor class, hits like a brick shit house, has all kinds of good stuff going for him. And again, you can have multiples of any or all of these things out here. So you can see how quickly this could get game breaking, right? So I like it. The fact that they're more survivable, at least. While I probably won't exploit it to the level that some people could, I still say it's a much needed improvement. From there, we had Flame Arrow, and it is a ranged touch attack. Let's find it. Make sure I'm not saying it wrong. Because it's a ranged touch attack, there should have never been a spell save. Spell resistance. No, save. No, I said it right. There should have never been a reflex save. Now, I don't know that they actually fixed this in here in the tooltip. Let's find out. Yes, they did. No spell resistance either. Oh, that's nice. So it's both of them. Or no. So that's a really nice spell now. And again, single target. Does sneak attack and crits and all that good stuff. Notice how it only applies to the first arrow. So you can cast multiples. And I have to hit a guy with like 7, I think, on one day at maximum level 30. You can really pump out a lot of these bad boys on one target. But the sneak attack and crit chances only apply to the first arrow, and that's fair enough. And I can see at least the sneak attack part making sense. I'm assuming it's because they're probably linked in a way that they don't do crits for each arrow. And I don't see why you shouldn't, but the sneak attack at the very least makes perfect sense, because once you get hit, you're aware that you're being hit. And every arrow after that isn't a sneak attack anymore, even though they hit you like back to back to back to back. I mean, they're pretty fast. But I can see that just to keep it from being a game-breaking spell. But already it's pretty freaking good. Again, since it's a ranged touch attack, you still have your normal bonuses to things, like your point-blank shot and all that still are applicable here. Let's see. Resist elements. This is a nice upgrade for you guys. Resist elements, if you recall, is a very nice energy or elemental protection spell. Okay, it's the second of the 3 of them. Endure elements being the first, resist energy or resist elements being the second, which is one we're seeing here, and then protection from energy, which is the third, the strongest of the 3. The first one and the third one have a 24-hour duration. This one, in the vanilla version of the game, only has 1 minute per caster level. Nothing horrible about that, but it was kind of silly that all the others had 24-hour buffs. So what Reeron did was they literally went out of their way to fix it. 24-hour buff just like the other 2 now. And I think that's much needed. From there, we have just 3 more that we're going to talk about today. Acid Fog is, again, another one of those where spell resistance shouldn't be applicable. Save for damage may be, and we'll see here when we get to it. So let's find it. That's Mind Fog, is level 6. So no save, no spell resistance, because again, it's acid. You're just in it and you're taking damage. So that's nice. So again, I see a lot of people wanting to use this spell, and you could have a lot more fun with these spells that are fogs and clouds, and Cloud of Bewilderment, storm spells even, I think. You'll have a variety of Cloud Kill. They've added a couple unique features to them, and let me tell you what those features are. So by reformatting the spell, they made it where if you're in the fog or the cloud or whatever we're talking about, you have a natural concealment. So if you remember what concealment is, it's just a straight up chance to miss something. Think of your ghostly visage, which gives you like a 10 or 20% concealment bump, which means that it doesn't matter if I'm naked in the breeze, as long as I got that spell on me, there's still a 20% chance that the target will just straight up miss me no matter how strong he swings, no matter how good his attack bonus is. He'll still miss 20% of the time. That's nice. And the same applies to being inside these fogs they've decided, which I think is a pretty good idea. And it works different depending on if we're talking about ranged attacks or melee attacks. So if you're doing melee and you're in the fog with someone that's also in the fog, you have like a low concealment of like 10 or 20%. Let me find it here for you real quick. 20% concealment versus melee attacks while in the fog cloud. However, if you're doing ranged attacks, I'm shooting someone that's outside of the fog. I'm inside the acid fog, okay? Being damaged, let's say. And I'm trying to shoot the guy that cast the spell on me with my crossbow. He has 50% concealment. That's huge. That's a 50-50 chance that I'll just straight up miss him no matter whether I hit him or not. They'll just say, nope, he's concealed, he missed. Vice versa, it works the same way. So if you're shooting into the fog with a ranged attack, I get 50% concealment. So it works both ways. So it's a hindrance slash a bonus. And having said that, I can see this being used greatly for some tactics. Throw acid fog down on your fighter who's in the middle of some melee crap to keep him from being zapped with ranged stuff. And I would assume that this concealment applies for things like ranged touch attacks as well, guys. But make sure that your fighter is protected from at least 12 points of acid damage every round somehow. You know, he has armor, for example, that's protecting him from it. Or you just use one of your energy immunity spells and make him immune to acid. You know, I can see that being a good team effort. You know, bumping all your melee guys with immunity to acid and casting the acid fog at their feet. While they're engaged in battle, all the bad guys are constantly taking damage. You're concealed from them so they can't just shoot at you. They'll have to run through the fog to get to you. And the fog actually, even though it doesn't say it in here, actually slows your movement down. So it's really nice spell now. So again, lots of reasons for picking these things. And the last thing to mention is these spells just like an acid fog, a cloud of bewilderment, blah blah blah, you know, wall of fire, even ones that are placeable effects, have been anchored in a way now that you can dispel them properly. You can use dispel magic on them, or gust of wind, for instance, will blow this thing away. And again, that'll be extremely useful for when you're running to negate attacks on your people, or just get rid of the fog so you can, you know, explore the room that you basically just filled with a poisonous cloud or whatever, right? But again, a much needed bump. See, the acid splash is our next one. And again, we mentioned it because not only is it a ranged touch attack, so good, it gets all the crits and sneak attack damage and all that good gravy. And like I said yesterday, for funsies, I was invisible messing around with the little bug beetle in this room using just this spell and this one, and I was doing like 30 to 40 points of acid or cold damage with a proper sneak attack move. So that was kind of fun. So now I can see again, it ain't game breaking beyond all measure, but you only get a few of them anyway. But it is definitely cool to do, and it makes these spells more useful. So again, remember when we say sneak attack, I also mean sneak attack and death attack. For those of you that have either or both, there's another class that has the same general thing, but they just call it something different. Both are applicable here. Also, it should not have spell resistance, so if you actually go to it here, you see they removed it. Again, it's acid. You're getting hit with acid. There should be no resistance from the acid stuff. So again, much needed. Last one we're going to talk about today in this video is Ballad Guards Iron Horn. This one here, not particularly interesting change. And it looks like they actually fixed it before Reeron got around to fixing it. Originally, they had it as a school was enchantment, and it's actually a transmutation like you see here in this scroll. So they actually fixed it before, and Reeron fixed it as well. So in case you have an old version, you should see that it is transmutation now. And the only reason that these things are important, and we'll see this again with other spells that are falsely labeled necromancy spells instead they're divine spells or whatever, conjure spells. You'll see that that's important for those that specialize as wizards in the specific school. And you thought you'd have access to a spell is one of the reasons maybe you went necromancy and now you don't have it. Well, it's because Reeron fixed it to the proper school. So making things like conjuration and enchantment and illusion and whatever more useful or less useful depending on what's getting the nerf back. But it is fixed in the way that pen and paper had it as the proper school, so that Reeron went out of the way to fix it. But now that's a lot to talk about. But with that, my name is Brothermutant. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. We're going to go through more stuff, and if I've said something wrong, I do apologize. There's a lot of stuff though that Reeron has done, and I'm very grateful for all the effort that they put into it. So this is a really nice fix for a lot of spells, and new spells of course too that we'll talk about later. But with that, I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.